He's a few running backs I'm going to drop this week heading into week 15. The first guy's Todd Gurley of the Atlanta Falcons. Todd Gurley, it's just not going for him anymore. And another horrible game now for Gurley. And in his last 3 games, he has failed to reach at least 6 fantasy points. Week 11, 8 carries, 26 yards, 1 catch for 3 yards. Week 12, he was injured, so he was out. Week 13, 8 carries, 16 yards, and a catch for 4 yards. And last week versus the Chargers, 6 carries, 19 yards, 2 catches, and 12 yards. So Todd Gurley, that knee's obviously a problem. Gurley, I said this is what I feared most of the season, and it finally happened here. Just that bad knee. I don't know if he was going to hold up, and he ran out of gas, and he's not getting much work anymore in Atlanta. He's a guy you can't trust. You can't start, really, especially if you're in the semifinals here. And he's a guy I would just drop because there's 4 teams left in your league anyway, most likely. If someone's going to pick him up, I don't see Gurley doing anything. And he's got a tough matchup this week versus Tampa Bay, who gives up the 7th least amount of fantasy points to running backs. And then in week 16, he versus Kansas City in a game where the Falcons are probably going to be trailing. And running backs, they don't have big games versus Kansas City. So Gurley, with his next 2 games coming up and no production and lack of touches, he's a guy you easily could get away from and drop this week if there's better options on your wire. So get rid of him. The second running back I'm dropping is the Rel Henderson. It was about time this Los Angeles Ram team and Sean McVay gave the keys to the backfield to Cam Akers. And Akers, he went off last week with an insane game. 29 carries and 171 yards versus a good New England Patriot team. But Akers shredded him. I've been saying this for probably 5 or 6 weeks now. Akers is ready to take the role back there. He's the best running back. They just got to give him the carries. And every time he comes into the game, he would energize the team and get them back in the game or whatever. And now Henderson, there's no way he should get his job back as the starter. And the numbers don't back it up as well. Henderson, in his last few games, he just hasn't gotten it done. In week 13 versus the Cardinals, a touchdown saved his day with 49 yards and a touchdown on 3 carries and then 2 catches, 25 yards. And then last week versus New England, 2 carries, 5 yards. This week it's versus the Jets, but it's time to drop Henderson. He's owned in 70% of league, but after waivers finishes tonight, he's a guy that should be dropped pretty much everywhere. There's no way McVay and the Rams are going to give this guy a good role where Cam Akers breaking out with that huge game. So, Rel Henderson, it's time to cut him. And the third and final running back you should cut and drop this week's Gio Bernard of the Cincinnati Bengals. Bernard, he was good the first few weeks filling in for Joe Mixon, but now he totally fell off as Bernard. And this week, in week 14, was his last chance I gave him versus the Dallas Cowboys in a great matchup. He had fumble issues and he didn't get the job done. 3 rushes, 8 yards, 3 catches, 15 yards, and the fumble loss, like I mentioned, for Gio Bernard. So it was his opportunity. He had a great matchup, and he's failed now to reach double-digit fantasy points since week 8. Mixon possibly could come back. I doubt it, but Gio Bernard, he's a guy I'm not going to have on my roster, a guy I'm definitely not going to play, and especially this week with a matchup versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. They give up the least amount of fantasy points to running backs, so it's an easy drop on Bernard, and that's a few running backs I'm going to drop this week, heading into week 15.